that energy I wanted him to. Jari struggled a bit. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Taiwo Nojobi once again. I'm your host on Landona's Maple Sports. I'm always excited to bring unfiltered opinion, sharp analysis, and some big love for Canadian hoops and ice. We get the opportunity to break down the NBA, spotlighting the CEBL, and we try to carve out some space for smart hockey talk. The way the hockey team is, the hockey league rather, is just like I have explained in my last edition. Is they're going to have a small break because of the Winter Olympics, and hockey is one of the key sports that are being played at the country level for the Winter Olympics. So they're trying to wrap up some games, and by January or first quarter of next year, it's safe to say that there will be a bit of rest before they go and represent their countries across board. And you all know we have a lot of Europeans that are playing at the NHL level, especially Russians and some part of Europe, Eastern Europe, that play active hockey in the US. They will want to represent their country. So they get this opportunity to be able to go back, get some rest, and represent their country at the Winter Olympics. But that being said, I will probably want to just go ahead with my analysis for matches that were played under the week for the week under review. First of all, I want to give out some shout out to the Edmonton Oilers. They were outstanding yesterday. I was able to catch up with their game with the Boston Bruins. Very outstanding game, very very tough game. The reason why that game was very important against the Boston Bruins is the Edmonton Oilers have to send a message. A Boston Bruins team is one of the top performing teams, at least for like the first quarter of the season. The first 34 to 35 games, they've won 18 already. Or as at the time, that I was checking up the ratings on the table and, coming together with the power ranking, they had already won 18 games. And winning this game now makes Edmonton have 18 wins also. 17 wins this season. So it means that their record against winning teams that are doing so well, is quite okay, above 50%. So the Boston Bruins game was very outstanding. Connor McDavid is still playing at a very high level. It looks like the guy is not getting old. Since 2015, he's still playing at a very high level. Drysdale is also playing well as well. And their new goaltender, which is Tristan Jarry, playing at a very high level. I'm happy because he's already settling into the team. He had a very good approach, and he was able to keep the decent game yesterday, even though the Edmonton team defeated the Boston Bruins 3 goals to 1. It was a very decent game. Connor McDavid is still very, very good, playing at a very high level. See how fast he was moving. I like his game, and that's why I love him so much. And he's the reason why I follow the Edmonton Oilers today. But let's just go down into some of the key analysis of the matches I handpicked myself, because there were very, very interesting moves across how those games went about. The Vancouver Canucks came back to winning ways. As presently constructed, the Vancouver Canucks are not even in a good position to say if the league were to end today. The Vancouver Canucks are still below expectation. They just have, I think they have 14 wins now in the entire league. For people that have 16 and 17 wins and 18, those are the teams that you can say, okay, they can fall into the wild card to qualify, for the postseason. But right now, the Vancouver Canucks are still behind, especially for the quality of the team. They need to do better. Their game against the New York Rangers was a very high tempo game. I like the way it went. They've won 13 games. They've lost about 20, lost 17 in regular time and 3 games in overtime. And the New York Rangers are also a very good team, because any team that has 16 wins at this stage of the season for me is a .5 team, which means they are over 500 in ratings for good teams. But they've won 16, they've lost 15 in regular time, and they've also lost 4 in overtime. So for me, the narrative is the Vancouver team has executed a complete road performance for me, because they were playing away from home, and the Vancouver team plays better at home. Yeah, because if you look at it, they are 9-7-2 away. So 9-7-2 away, that means that they've won 9 and they've lost 9 away. So fairly balanced, but they've won more games at home, if you look at it well. Looking at the numbers here, okay, we can say that they are fairly balanced away as well. But last season, they won more games at home than away. So from my numbers here, they are fairly balanced away from home. And that was why they were able to also, take advantage of this game away from home. And looking at the scoring flow, I like to just talk about the scoring flow because I like the way both teams were going back and forth. Vancouver in the first period came with a scoring. It came from Brock. Brock Boza is still playing at a very high level. It was assisted by Ronek. I like the way, the goal came because it also showed that they commanded the first period. And that was just all. There was no other goal in the first period. In the second period, the Vancouver team, were still able to press it on, continue pushing, and the double came from Evander Kane. Evander Kane too is another good player. He has this gritty way of playing, and he was able to, approach that in the finish that he came up with, in that game. In the third period, Vancouver again went, so they just made it one goal per period, and that was how they ended with 3-0. Liam Ogren, you will notice that Vancouver wanted it more, even though they were playing a team that I feel with 16 wins they are not a scrub. New York Rangers are still playing at a very high level, but the Vancouver team wanted it more. And that goal was more like what I call an insurance. They just needed to cement it and show that, okay, this is done and dusted. And, they scored in every period. And that's what I like the most for the team. For players that were outstanding, because I like to call out players that did so well in that match. Brock Bosner, just like I said, he scored the opener, he played well. Evander Kane, wonderful. Liam Ogren scored very, very late, the insurance goal, and that depth contribution that he brought to the team. That's a very good one. Philip Ronek and Elias Peterson, for me, they logged in very, very good amount of minutes. It means that they are very, very, very relevant. You understand? On plus minus, they were both positive. Highest positive across board. So for me, that's a strong pop movement for me. And defensive stability also came from those two guys. So shout out to them, Peterson. Continue the good job you are doing. Perfect night. The keeper was also good. You can't just take all the praise and give it to the forwards and the center, the defensemen. The goaltender was outstanding, 23 saves on 23 shots. And this is one of the first times I'll be praising a keeper with 1.0 SV percentage. That means it was 100%. He didn't, no goals, short attempts that were against him. He was able to keep them out, you know, frustrating the other team. You could see that they were fully frustrated. Shout out to Demko for a very, very wonderful game from the Vancouver side, continue to give us this kind of wonderful performance. The New York Rangers, coming back to them, like I said earlier, this team is not a scrub, but some of their top players were okay. Panarin had 8 shots, but the finishing was not good enough, and he was also frustrated by the goaltender. The goaltender was having a very good day. Vincent Trocek also generated chances, but he couldn't really convert those chances because of the top performance from the goaltender. If a goaltender really means you, sometimes you can play well, and sometimes I noticed that games that Trocek has very, very high shots on goal. Some of them, the quality of the shots are, you can doubt them. They are not high quality shots. So he probably needs to just improve on that. Jonathan Quick couldn't just help. He had 14 saves on 16 shots, which was a 0.875 SV percentage. And he was beaten cleanly twice, before being pulled out quite late for a substitute goaltender to come in. So if you look at it generally, the Vancouver Canucks wanted it a bit more. Their attack for me was very balanced. They tried their best, tried to push the pace a bit more. I like their zone game, the way they play. The strong defensive structure also showed me that they know a bit about what championship is all about. Even though they've not really, challenged the narratives in a while, but at least they know what championship is all about, and they were able to make it count. New York Rangers have to improve on their heavy shot volume. There's no quality in some of those shots, but the shot volume is very high. All they just need to do is work on it, make sure that the volume is good. And at the end of the day, they'll find themselves in better positions to be able to challenge there's still a lot of good teams in hockey this season. We still have the Anaheim Ducks, we still have the Columbus Blue Jackets. These are teams that are performing at a very high level. So if you're not winning these games, then it's going to be very difficult for you to challenge those teams. So shout out to the New York Rangers. Keep pushing. You guys can make it count, and you will come out at the top at the end of the day. Yeah, thank you so much for that. The next game is the Anaheim Dogs versus Columbus Blue Jackets. These are two good teams. The Anaheim Dogs, I talked about it earlier in the season, the way they started. Now they have 20 wins. They've won 20 games and they lost 14. That's very, very good. Away, they've won 9, lost 8, and they lost 2 in overtime. It shows the grit that the team is performing at a very high level. Columbus Jacket have also won 14, not so good. Because if you have won 14, it means that automatically, if the season were to end now, you are not even in the wild card. You are out of the wild card zone. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. The Anaheim team, won this game 4. No, the Columbus Blue Jackets rather won this game 4, and the Anaheim Dogs, scored 3. So you can see that the Columbus Blue Jackets are fighting for their life, trying to, get as many wins as possible before the winter break where they'll be going for Olympics. The Anaheim team also rallied very, very late from what I watched in the extended highlights. I saw that they were rallying very late, putting a lot of pressure, but the Columbus team were a bit solid in their defense, kept it very decent, and some good performance from their young core. A couple of young guys that I saw, that they are playing at a very high level. Looking at the scoring flow, just to have a brief look at the scoring flow, the Columbus Blue Jackets, decided to make it an early lead for them just to shake the team. And in the second period, we had a couple of goals, 2 from Anaheim and 1 more from Columbus, trying to balance things up. Then in the third period, we now had Anaheim coming back to force a 3-3 overtime. Now in the overtime, it was very shaky because Columbus team looked like they were not tired, and the Anaheim team looked tired. So Bonjena just scored the game winner, assisted by Ken Johnson. And that was what made it very, very outstanding for them, because I like the way their rotation went, because it helped them to preserve their energy. And they were very, very direct about it. They wanted to be able to capitalize on the overtime, and that's what helped them. So the Anaheim team, for me, they still showed resilience. They tried to push a bit, but the Columbus depths and their clutch game was what helped them, and it carried them into the overtime as well. So, and that energy, because they looked stronger, they looked like they were not tired, and that was what helped them to be able to, come up with an outstanding performance towards the end. The Anaheim Dogs had good performance from McTavish. He had a goal and an assist as well. That was a strong offensive presence for me. If you look at the way the games were set up, you understand. As presently constructed, McTavish was the most offensive rather, player in that match. Troy Terry also scored in the second, and being very active on the puck, he will definitely add value. You understand, in a game that we call of high reputation, especially when you are playing with a US team that is also playing at a very high level. You must have people active on the puck, and they will always deliver on a plus minus, especially when you're looking at their ratings. So Chris Kreider also had a clutch third period goal to force the overtime, which was also a good performance from him. On the Columbus Blue Jackets, I can say that Bonjena overtime goal was outstanding, and that overtime winner was also, it shows for me that leadership impact that he has. He's a very good player. Adam Fantil also tried. He was also one of the goal scorers. In fact, at the beginning of the game, he had a face-off performance of about 64.3%. To me, it lived up to expectation, and that was what even helped them win. Ken Johnson did a lot of playmaking. He gave some assists, creative puck movement as well. And, I like what I'm seeing from Ken Johnson. Keep it up, Ken Johnson. And, there's no how you have to praise the Columbus Blue Jackets goaltender. He tried his best. He had 24 saves on 27 shots, and that's a 0.889 SV percentage. So, very steady guy. He was steady under pressure. I was even surprised the way he played at a very high level. Yeah, so the face-off struggles for Anaheim comes from mostly US teams. Anaheim Dogs have really beaten a lot of Canadian teams this year, but most US teams kind of figure them out, and they're able to, still keep them quiet, and that's why they still don't have as many wins as I expected them to have. They started very well at the beginning of the season. They also beat some US teams, but they tend to kind of dominate Canadian teams, and when you see them play against other US teams, they don't really look as potent or as dangerous as they should be. Columbus Blue Jacket, I like their balanced attack. They tried their best, and they were able to also push it a bit more than what we expected. But from my big picture, I believe, going forward, that Anaheim team will still continue to fight. It's still a first-class organization. They will still continue to show some offensive depth. They have a lot of young guys. They will continue to tighten their defensive coverage going forward, but they need to improve on face-off efficiency, especially when it comes to close games, because they will still play the Florida Panthers. These are teams that have won the championship back to back. So you need to be able to show those teams that you can put them under pressure, especially when it's getting to towards the end of the game, clutch moments. Columbus tried their best as well, and that was why they were able to get this win. They demonstrated resilience, and that's because that's also a very very good team, whether you like it or not. The Blue Jackets will always give you clutch execution, especially in overtime. And their young core is what surprised me the most. Fantilli, Johnson, and Machenko, good guys. They are proving that they are capable of carrying the load and the momentum of the team. Shout out to them, and I wish them luck as they continue to fight for a place in the postseason. Just like I spoke earlier, the Edmonton Oilers had the opportunity of playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't know if they knew that there was going to be a clash of keepers, because they had just traded their own keeper to the Pittsburgh, and the Pittsburgh sent their own keeper as well. I mean, their goaltenders. So there was an exchange of their goaltenders. Before this match, the Edmonton Oilers already had 16 wins, while the Pittsburgh had 14. And looking at the way the match went, it was just more of like a face-off between both keepers. Conor McDavid was brilliant. He's still the best player on this team and he's the captain. He went very, very fast, going through a little bit reluctant of the Pittsburgh defense. He was just going through them more like you are going through in the middle of some of the spaces that are exploited, and he was able to come up with a wonderful performance. There were a lot of defensive lapses from the Pittsburgh team, and he also showed that the keeper that we got from Pittsburgh is now a very good guy. Tristan is settling in well, and is beginning to enjoy it. Now, the emotional part of Skinner going is Skinner grew up in Edmonton. He's been in Edmonton all his life, and for the first time going to play in Pittsburgh in the US, it was very, very emotional for him. His wife, kids, they all live in Edmonton. So for him going to Pittsburgh, to go and play with another team outside Canada, it was an emotional time for him. So a lot of people didn't really get to understand what went wrong with Skinner. Skinner had played at a very high level. He had played at the Stanley Cup final. So he has seen it all. But it's also about a business decision. Edmonton Oilers know that if they have to challenge, they need to take tough decisions. And that's why he was traded for Tristan J. Now Tristan J has come and is adjusting to the team. And let's just see how it goes, because large investments, ticket sales, a lot of things go into maintaining a franchise and keeping the franchise very relevant. Getting to the final and losing back to back is not good enough. And it's just like trying the same thing and expecting a different results. So those are some of the things or some of the moves they need to make that can allow them at least move the goalpost, to a better position. So looking at the first period, Zach Hyman, as usual, on the Edmonton side, scored the opening with Draxel and Dreitzel and McDavid giving him the assist. Very, very wonderful game. I spent my time watching this one. The second goal came from McDavid himself, was a power play goal. And, just some seconds later after that first goal came. Then Pittsburgh came back again with Tomin Novak cutting the deficit late before they went in for the second period. When the second period started, I was seeing the Edmonton team fighting again. They scored early to make it 3-1. Just to show that dominance that, okay, yes, we are here. Then Pittsburgh again went with a power play goal from Eric Carlson, just to try and push a bit. Crosby helping him out with an assist. And the Edmonton Oilers went back again, Evan Butchard with the power play goal to restore that 2-goal cushion. So the good thing about the Edmonton team is they are producing a lot of goals. It's just that their defense is not really as good as last season. They are able to produce a lot of goals. It's not a problem. The last match I watched before this one was where they were able to push a last few seconds to the end of the game. They were able to push a game to 3-3, and in overtime they lost. So that game, they put in a lot of, you could see that they were putting in a lot of effort, and they scored the third goal to make it 3-3, and they went to overtime. Overtime, they now lost to the team they were playing, and it's very tough, especially when you are fought to get to overtime. So second period was very dicey. Then the third period, Edmonton now went to the final goal to make it a 3-goal difference from Podkolzin, extending the lead. Then Pittsburgh very very late, just to give them some kind of some kind of consolation. Brian Ross now scored again, now made it 5-3. So at that point in time, it was more of a battle between the keepers. Looking at what will happen, going into the third period. So for going into the third period, the Edmonton team was very relaxed because they had that to-go cushion, and they now put in a goal from Vasily. The Pittsburgh now scored. No, sorry, McDavid added an empty net rather. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, McDavid added an empty net, and that was when the team just relaxed. They just felt that everything had gone. After a while, final minute, but it was a bit too late. And in Danton now came with a very late goal. Yeah. Edmonton is still a very special team. Look at their power play goals. It's still they still have that championship DNA in them. They can go in and challenge. And I like what I'm seeing from Conor McDavid as the captain of the team. Conor McDavid with 2 goals and 2 assists is still the driving force offensively for this team. Leon Draisaitl, I like their combination. The two of them are playing at a very, very high level. Drysdale had 4 assists, which also, I think it was this game he hit his 1,000 points because all the players had to come out and hug him. And, it's always a big ceremony. Once you hit 1,000 points in the league, it's always a big celebration. So it was in this game that Leon Drysdale hit his 1,000th points in the NHL. Zach Hyman had a goal plus an assist as well. Wonderful performance from Edmonton Oilers. You guys, keep it up and, keep giving us wonderful hockey. Pittsburgh team, Penguins, in my own opinion, I'm going to say it the way it is. They are not going anywhere this season. They really don't even have what it takes to go this season, but they will keep fighting, except they just come up and surprise me. But from what I'm seeing, they are really not going anywhere. Eric Carlson with 1 goal and 2 assists also helped. They were also able to produce some goals. Skinner had 17 saves in this game. I forgot to say that for the Pittsburgh team. He had 17 saves on 22 shots, and that was a 0.773 SV percentage. So it was shaky, but it got some support by the offense, but it is what it is. Tristan Jarry also had 26 saves on 30 shots. He allowed 4 goals, but because of the production of the Edmonton team, he was still able to finish with 0.867%. I think because both keepers were facing their previous teams, they were a bit shaky. But it was the offense of both teams that supported them and gave them some respite and ability to rest. So for the tactical analysis outlook for Edmonton Oilers, for the power play weapon, McDavid is still playing at a very high level. Drysdale and Bochard, those are the key guys that orchestrated the 3 goals, and they are still very, very big weapons. Savo and Podolskin are still chipping in. They are still acting more like secondary scorers after these 3 guys I talked about, and they keep that balance. There were some defensive lapses from the Penguins, but they were still able to stay in the game because they produced 4 goals. Imagine Edmonton did not have a good scoring night. They would have just considered another 4 goals from Penguins. It seemed that they had just bought over their goaltender. So it would have been a bad one for them. For the Pittsburgh team, I like what I'm seeing from the young guys, even though I don't feel that they will do much this season. Carlson's offensive impact was huge. But he created some, defensive gaps, which also haunted them. Crosby could not really generate that energy I wanted him to. Jarry struggled a bit, you know. But, what's his name? The Skinner struggled a bit against his former team, and that's why, 6 goals came in. And I saw the late surge. If they had more time, the Pittsburgh team were getting it a bit late, but, let's still see what they get to do between now and the end of the season. The big picture is Edmonton has taken a tough decision, and some elite players, are beginning to rise up and wake up and play at a very high level. I'm seeing some big weapons coming up for the postseason, and I believe that the postseason is going to be very interesting. Skinner now is out, so now they have Tristan Jarry. So Jarry has to stabilize and make the team stronger, and help them to be able to push in the postseason. So the last game I'll be talking about today is the Washington Capitals versus Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild is a very, very good team. I've always said it here. They've had 20 wins this season and they've only lost 14. Very, very good team. They are playing very, very well. And in this match, they demolished the Washington Capitals. Now, this Washington Capitals is not a scrub team. They've had 18 wins this season, including defeating a good number of our Canadian teams. And I was thinking that, it's going to be difficult, but they went into this match and they could not even respond to one single goal. after having 18 wins and about 15 losses already, which is a very good positive performance. But they could not even. Minnesota dominated from the beginning to the end. You know, we had the first period with Vladimir Tarasenko, one of the oldest players on the team. You know, open scoring. You know, assisted by Yurov, wonderful goal. In second period, we also had Kirill Kaprizov. A lot of Europeans are on this team, playing very very well. And you know, the assist came from two players, Ericsson and Quinn Hughes. And you know, third period they just put in three more goals, and you know, the Washington team just gave up. You know, Tarasenko scored the second goal. Danila Yurovs added one, and Matt Boldy. Boldy is still playing very, very well. You know.